Hello, hello. Welcome to another Positive Talk. Super excited for this one because I am doing it with my friend Val, who has been on here before, but this time she has an amazing announcement. She is putting out a book. I know that we might have talked about this in our live. I know that we have talked about it in many different spaces, so super excited to bring her on and discuss the book that she's so many stories out there need to be heard, and the pieces that I've heard of her story only makes it. Hello, hello.
Hi!
How are you?
So good, and you? So good.
Doing well. I'm hoping that we have enough light to last through the live. I wasn't thinking until I sat here and started seeing it get dark, and I was like, uh-oh.
Oh yeah, because it's 7 o'clock your time. It's
Yep.
still early where I am. Yeah,
Still bright and sunny over there.
yeah. So bright and sun. It's like 5 o'clock, so it's good. It's still good.
Well, I will let you introduce yourself, even though I gave you a little bit of an introduction so that people know who you are, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
I'm so excited. Thank you again, Truman. I'm so excited to be part again of this beautiful, beautiful life that you have been doing for years now.
Um,
My name is Val Dupré, and I am a resilient coach. I'm also like a shaman and an author. I'm an
mm,
author. My first book is coming out, and I'm so excited about it. My main really calling that I think it's to help people um, basically awaken their personal and the personal self, and awaken all those possibilities that they have inside of them for so many years. Has been like high hidden for so many years, and help them to awaken that and to utilize them and to use them for the benefits of themselves, but also for the work that have been their calling. So yeah, that's me.
I love it. And I mean, you have been doing that work for quite some time. You and I connected through the Clubhouse platform, and you were hosting spaces in there so regularly, doing that work on a very regular basis. So I've gotten to witness it. So, and I'm just very honored to be able to be someone that you call upon when something like this is happening in your life. Because putting a book out into the world, I feel like, especially as a coach, we know how much stories can heal people. And I know that you've got a beautiful story, and I think a lot of people will be able to connect with it, feel a little bit less alone out there, as well as be inspired by your journey and know that there is definitely the ability to turn your story into something you can use to empower and heal others.
It is. And you know what? Thank you so much for those kind words. I really enjoyed the time that I did when I was doing those workshop, I'm gonna call it, in Clubhouse, and those great profound conversations. Writing this book for me was one of the most therapeutic ways that I could have used. Like this, it was better than all those hours of psychology saying my therapist. It was better than so many things that I've tried in my life, was writing the book. And sometimes we don't realize that when we take the time to actually write about um, part of our story, because the book is about part of my story, not all my life stories, but some of most important part of my life story. So just doing that, the therapy that I gained from it was like saved me a lot of money.
Oh, I love it. And I completely agree with you because I feel like I haven't written a book yet, but I've done a lot of very in-depth conversation videos on YouTube where I've shared my story. And it's almost like hiding something inside of you is such a weight that drags you down. So like any avenue that you can get your story out, it really does kind of like free you of all of those things that are causing pain internally. Um, and therapy is also very helpful. But I'm excited to dive into this conversation. And where would you like to start? I know that the book if you'd like to give the title out, and then we can jump in.
Yes. So the book's name, it's called Born Out of Fear. And it came to me in a dream. So I was dreaming and I saw myself holding a book and I saw the title and then I saw my name and I'm looking, oh, that's an interesting title, Born Out of Fear. Like, and I'm like, and I saw my name and I woke up. And when I woke up, I was like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like I felt it was such a profound dream. It felt so real as well that I decided to think a little bit more about it. But like anything else, I got busy. Life happens. I got busy and kind of always in the back of my head, but I was like, when am I gonna have time to write a book? You know what I mean? You have to sit down and write, when am I gonna have time? And I didn't even know all that was going to entail to write it. And then I enjoyed myself. And when life stops you, there's a reason, right? Injuries, especially injuries like that force you to stay and put, to be quiet and to sit down and to not do anything. It's a reason for you. It's like the universe telling us, pause, take a
Yeah.
moment to pause and think. And I think that's what was happening with me, is that it was telling me, pause, take a moment to reflect on life. And that's when I began to write it. And it took me 3 years.
Hey, I mean, it's in the process now, so now it's going to be out there into the world, and I agree with you. I think sometimes when something is really meant to be created, like the universe will find a way to make you sit down and do the work. And I I think a lot of people before the pandemic had that mindset of if I only had more time. And like the pandemic kind of slapped us with, well, here's your time. What are you going to do with it? And I felt like so many people just moved on to the next excuse as to why they weren't going to start something. So I'm glad that you found the time. And the injury was not what we needed, but I'm glad you are in the process of recovering through that. But when it comes to the book, how many years before um, when it came to having the dream and saying this is the title? Was
Oh,
it the 3 years or?
oh no, it was before. It was before my injury. So my injury has been like almost 3.5 years. So it was probably like a 4 year and a half before I had the dream. And to tell you, it took me a year and a half to really got pushed. And it was always in the back of my head. I will start and then finish. I will start and it was getting too emotional. So I will move away from it. And also, there's so many fear. When you start writing your memoir, there's so many fear that start coming out about it, right? What are people going to think? Anybody's going to read it. And then if you talk about things that personal, so there's also affecting other members of your family, like mine. So what are you going to say? What people going to think about me? And then all kind of things start to be like, maybe it's not a good idea to write it. Maybe it's not a good idea to write it. But one thing I know, when an idea is in your head and it doesn't want to come out, it's because it has to come out, right? You have to do it. You have to do it. It's like a way of, I think, our higher self as well, and the universe telling you, this is important, this needs to happen. And will feel like a nagging forever until you decide to, okay, I'm going to do it. And then when you start doing it, do it.
Yeah. So when it comes to starting and when it came to bringing all the stories that you put into the book, how did you pick and choose the ones that you put into the book? Because the book would be this big if we put everything in there. So
Right.
what journey did you go on to pick and choose what you were going to tell in the book?
It is so interesting. Thank you for asking that question. It's 176 page, the book. And it's a lot, I feel. It's a lot. It's already a lot of pages, right? But when I started writing, I think my first thing, I was trying to understand what was the Born Out of Fear meant for me, right? And as you know, because I've shared so many times, I am a child of rape, right? So my mom was sexually abused, and then that's how I came to this world. So the title totally makes sense. Born out of fear, because my mom was an extreme fear when the whole process of holding me into her belly for the 9 months was also all about fear. So when from that title, I decided, okay, what is the fear in me? What is that's caused so much fear into my life? So I just had to write it and just dumping thing, and I just dump it. If you read the first version, you're gonna be like, yo, I don't know if I want to read that, but it was raw, and it was like I dump everything, right? And then from all of it, I tried to create kind of from a chronology, kind of, so people can understand what was happening, what this happened. And then the interesting part was that happened to me is that when you, even, I'm much encourage people to write a journal. When you start writing about you, the thing is we start going back in time and then start to realize all those things that happened to us and how we overcame them. Because sometimes we don't spend enough time realizing how much we overcome, right? We're like, oh yeah, I'm a strong person, something happened to me. But when you start to actually sit and think what happened when I was 5 years old, 8, 9, 10, and you start to write it down and you start to really think about it. And the interesting thing about it, for the many years in my life, I thought I was alone. I thought I didn't have anybody. But when I started writing the book, I realized that somehow there was always one person that showed up. Sometimes that person is still in my life right now, but sometimes the person was just there like for a few years. And then after that, the disconnect. But there was always one person that was always there to uplift me, to help me move to the next step. And so what it did for me is that in the future, when life gets tough and challenging, I know that somebody will show up. Something will happen to help me move to the next step. And I think that's what one of the best discovery, because we have a tendency, I'm a resilient coach, so we have a tendency to think that we're all alone, and that loneliness is what mainly can kill people. It's that sense of loneliness, right? That I'm alone to, and nobody's with me to overcome or anything that I want to overcome. But it's not true. When I start writing, I realize, oh my gosh, even in my um, deepest problem, like at one point I tried to commit suicide and I was almost successful and I ended up in the hospital. Even then, at my lowest at the hospital, I found a therapist that spoke one sentence to me that still helped me today. And then what she said was, Val, I didn't believe that you wanted to die. I just think that you did not know how to live. And for some reason, I just needed to meet that person to tell me that sentence. And that sentence, it's been helping me since.
I love that. I've never heard that one before, and I love that because I feel like that is kind of where people's minds can go. Like I think we're all born with that like innate desire to live life to the fullest, but sometimes when it comes to how do we do that, our minds can't wrap around the idea of how can we keep going forward.
Mhm.
Especially kind of like what you were saying when it came to a lot of times when we look back, like the pain is so big, we forget to see all the little pieces and parts that we're working to keep us going. And like it's a
Mhm.
journey of realizing that we've got a lot of resilience built into us, but the universe is also laying out the steps so gracefully that sometimes the pain that we're focusing on is all that we can see when we look back. But I love that the idea of going back, you can
Mhm.
start to see those things. Because I always tell people, like, as an adult, it's so helpful to go back and look at our monsters from when we were a child, because a lot of times perceiving a problem as a child with the little information we have of the world, all we can do is label it as monster. Whereas when you go back as an adult, you know a little bit more about the world. Not everything, but
Mm-hmm.
it's when you reprocess some of those things, it's a different experience. So I'm glad like writing a book and taking that journey has been able to help you in that way.
And I love you talk about monsters because I actually have a chapter called Monsters.
Perfect.
Have you read the book?
I
Getting
might
a
have hacked into
special
your
delivery.
computer.
Yeah, I actually have a chapter called Monsters. It's basically, we have those monsters in our life, and then also I realized that I had a choice at one point myself to become a monster, right? Because a lot of time what happened to us, we always have a choice. Am I gonna keep going this with the cycle, or am I gonna stop the cycle right there, right? Am I going to reflect the same monster, or am I going to stop it? Like just change. And and it's interesting when I went to the back in writing the story. One of my monsters, of course, is my father, right? The rapist, right? Like, can I say those bad words in here? Yeah, I think we can say those words,
Yes, you can.
beep, beep, beep. There's some words people don't want to say, but you have to call a spade, right? You have to call a spade a spade. And so basically, that was a monster for me, right? In my story, in my mind. He wasn't when I was a child because of family secret I did not know until I was much later in my life. But when I find out, until I know, I fantasize about this amazing father. And then when I find out, then he became that monster that I was so scared of becoming, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sharing the DNA with that type of being. Like, oh my gosh, like so much. But in the same time, I had there's a moment of acceptance. And that moment of acceptance, realizing that yes, this is part of my DNA. He's part of what the reason I'm here on this planet. And in the same time, um, accepting also who he is, but also accepting that I'm not him, right? That I'm also my own individual. It sounds like easy to say and it sounds like so logical to think, but emotionally, I had to believe it, right? Because somebody can say something in your mouth, but emotionally, I was not. It took me quite a few years to believe it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's always so interesting because you hear stories about people who have learned something about their past that they weren't aware of, or find out that a truth that was the story of their life is drastically different than what they had been told most of their life. And that's like a big shift because every stone we've laid in front of ourselves to build a life is based upon the facts and information we're given. So
Mm-hmm.
when that's kind of pulled out from under you and replaced with the truth or a different narrative than what your journey has been built around, it kind of like makes your identity a little bit more obscure because it's like, wait, when something that big feels like a lie, it almost attaches to everything that you're going through. And it's like, how much of my life is like known to me now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I connect to anything when something that was such a core belief attached to my journey in life is now kind of flipped upside down and completely different?
Yes. The identity, like you said, it's rediscovering myself, and I had to fall back in love with myself, right? When we're a kid, we love ourselves, and then information start to blur up our vision about our self-love. And then so when all those information start to happen, that's when I start to realize, oh my gosh, I actually, I need to fall back in love with myself. I need to rediscover who I am.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So something that I think is beautiful about books being written is you're giving words to a story that someone else could be closely identifying to, but haven't yet found the words to share their journey with the world. So when
Hmm.
it comes to someone picking up your book and reading it, what do you think people will get from it, whether it's someone who has not shared your similar journey or someone who's been on a similar journey? What do you think your book will help people come to realize?
You know, when I and that's one of the part of writing the book, the dumping and everything. But at one point, I had to put what is my intent? What is the full intent in writing that story? Am I writing? Who am I writing it for? And what is my intentions in writing that story? So I first was my for my children's so they can know that story. And then I wanted the people to realize that the importance of actually owning your story, all that makes you you, owning it. And then as they're reading it, they realize like how deeper and profound or painful fear can be. It's also fear can be transformed, right? We have a chance to transform the pain, the shame, all the fear into love. We have a chance to do it. And that doesn't mean, and I'm not in the type of person saying that to forgive and forget. Like, I'm not that at all. I'm not even saying you have to forgive everybody, right? I'm not even, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I'm not even there. Because to be honest, like, there's some people that I forgive, and some people I'm just saying, I don't know if it's going to happen on this lifetime. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know if it's going to happen in this lifetime, because forgiving for me has to be that when I've released, when it's finished, I'm able to sit in a table with you and be at peace, not having bad thoughts in my mind, or, I need to be fully content. So that's real forgiveness, and not like 2 years of 6 months later thinking bad thought about that person, right? So forgive. I hope that people, as they read it, they can realize fear can be transformed, compassion, but also when you take the time to own your story, your whole story, it gives also space, because there's a freedom that comes from it, from first of all, a liberation that comes from it. And then it gives space to rediscover other aspects of oneself that we did not know. As I was writing and I was rem- discovering or going back to my life story and owning my whole story as I was writing the book, I also got the chance to rediscover a lot of gifts that was hidden, that couldn't come out, that couldn't, that couldn't came out because I was so in pain. I was so living in the fear aspect. So that's what it's. I hope people, when they read it, they can connect in that aspect. Maybe not for every exact story, but they can connect that. Hey, you know what? Maybe I'm too much living into that umbrella of the fear. And now that I understand what fear is all about, fear is necessary, right? It's part of it's the necessity for life. So now that I understand that fear, I understand the purpose of that fear, I can transform it and utilize it to rediscover myself and use it for better, for do something. What is my calling? It's all about. So really, that's my hope. They can find. There's also some good jokes. I made some jokes because it's part of my personality. So people are gonna laugh. There's some things that it was like crazy that I hope people will laugh. I sent it to before when I was finishing editing. I sent it to a couple writers that I know and editors that I know, personal editors, and they read it. And I said, I want to make sure. Did you laugh? And they said, well, I laughed, I cried, I got angry, and then I felt peace. So that's what they said to me. So you're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry, you're gonna be angry, but at the end you'll feel peace.
I love that. And just kind of hearing like your telling of that just like made me think of like this darkness that has so many beautiful things hidden inside of it.
Mhm.
And as someone who like is a coach as well, one of the things that I try to help people with is reclaiming their passions and their individual like identities. And so often, if we're not brave enough to go back through our fears and go back through the journey of the pain and trauma, like there's some really beautiful things hidden there. And so many adults, like when you ask them questions about, like, what are you passionate about? That is such a hard question to answer for so many people who have blocked out pieces of their past, who have detached from their past because of the pain. And the way that you just told that of just like being able to find beauty in going back and sorting through all of your story, I think that that's extremely beautiful because it's sad to hear someone not know what beauty they hold on this earth. Like there's so much that each person on this planet has to offer, and unfortunately sometimes life sends us through the mucks and it's hard for us to hold on to those pieces of ourselves when we're just trying to survive and just get to the next day and the next day, but being able to rediscover it is absolutely beautiful.
You know, it's when you were speaking, there's something that came to me, and I realized that, and I've seen a lot of my clients. I'm sure you've seen it as well, and I've seen it within myself as well. Is that as we live in a society that makes us be scared of looking within. So a lot of time people, what is it? Addiction is because we don't want to face something, right? Either you watch Netflix, or you are stuck with food, whatever. It's because there's something that you want to cover. You don't want to take the time to see it and to face it. That's my dog. Sorry. Show attention. But one thing that I realized is that it's because of that. All those things around us making us run away from us. And as long as you're going to keep running away from you, who you are, you're not going to be able to see the potential that you're trying to help people see, right? They're never going to be able to see it because we're running away from it. Sometimes you have the work you have to do. I remember I used to do that like that. I work I have to do, but I would spend time watching Netflix, even if I know what is it. What was the reason? Because I had some fear of what people might think of me. Okay, what is deeper than that? Then you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and I realized it's because a lot of the time because I didn't want to see me, and I'm afraid to show me to the world. But the thing is, when we start to own our story, when we start to go back, we start to realize, oh my gosh, I'm actually really good. Like, I'm actually a good person to hang out to. Like, I want to hang out with myself. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a good person to hang out with, right? I don't have to hide and run. Like, and if when we start to enjoy hanging out with our own self, it's easier than to speak to other people and have people wanting to hang out with us, right? The true self. Like, I'm the same person in my house that then you see me on the street because I actually enjoy me. But like, I'm not, it took me years to come to that point, right? I'm just saying. And so, it took me years to get on that point. But it is important to that self discovery because we need one Drummond, right? How many times I've called you, because the way you think, the way we have our great conversations, you're that special person. We haven't met in person, but you're that
We have
special
not.
person that I want to call and send a message. Drummond, I need to talk about this, right? Because I know who you are, because you've shown me Drummond, and I love Drummond, right? And then I think that's what people, it's important that when we good friendship, people you connect with, it's because the person I've shown you who they are, and you love that person, nothing else.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes that piece of us that we forget we are, it
Mm,
never leaves us. So a lot of times people see it in us, even if we can't see it within ourselves.
mhm,
It's like that disconnect we have with connecting to our inner selves is just like something that we have disconnected from, but we bring it with us so often. Because I can think back from certain times in my life where I was very disconnected from myself. But
mhm,
now that I'm more connected here in the future, I can look back and still see that person journeying through, still doing the good deeds, still doing it for the right reasons, still making sure that I'm doing the work to help more people connect to their love and passion of the world. And I was like, wow, even in the time where I was walking through darkness in my own life, like I was still doing the work that I was meant to do in this world.
mhm,
And it's just like I couldn't see it, but like once I kind of healed and realized that there were parts of me that I needed to work on, I was just like, wow, look at little me go. Like he is still crushing it.
mhm,
And it's funny because sometimes the younger version of myself, it's almost like a YouTube video or a Facebook post I made years ago was meant for me today to hear, to see, to remind me of my journey that I've been on. And I'm like, wow, that's
mhm.
crazy. But
That is so true. Mm,
when it comes to yours and my like conversations that we've had, I know that we have dove in deep into spirituality and connectiveness in that way.
mhm.
How has that journey been for you when it came to writing your book? Because I feel like it would be impossible for this book to be in existence without you being that connected to
Yeah.
everything around you.
If I told you, like, as I was writing the book, a lot of things was coming up was, um, and from my ancestors. This is my religion, my spirituality is really connected with my ancestors, and it's connected with the spirit world, like of the ancestors, right? So as I was writing the book, and sometimes will come out to me that I didn't, that I forgot, and it will come back to me, or I'll hear a voice, or I'll, I'll have an impression of a clarity of the truth about an event. And I was like, what? This is how it happened? No. And then I will call my mother or aunties or somebody else and find out that what came to me and the way it happened was actually true, which is actually the exact way. So my ancestors were really involved in writing the book a lot. And I think for me was to come out of the closet, spiritual. I literally come out of the closet spiritually because I have those gifts for so many years that I was afraid to share. Because again, what people are going to think, how people are going to say, is it too out of fetch? And also doubting my own self of what I know. There's something I just know, but I will doubt myself about knowing those things, right? But spiritually, the connections with the ancestors. Our ancestors' information is in our blood, so like they give us a little bit of piece of it. So really, we have access of it within ourselves. And some of us have just those knowing. Some people we can see things. Some people can hear things. Right? Doesn't matter how it happened, but those informations are within us. And then if we want to access them, we can access them. The same way our past lives are for a reason. I don't know if most people, I mean, not everybody believe in past lives. There's so many things, right? But our past lives also affect who we are today. So acceptance is it's one of the most important word you're gonna see in the book. Acceptance of my gifts, acceptance of me, like really owning that whole story, accepting that I am not crazy when I'm here, the voice of my ancestors, because everything come true. I'm not crazy if I'm seeing a dream and it come true, like, or have an impression about something, or feeling somebody energy, and knowing to tell that person, hey, go get that herbs and mix that herbs together and do this. It's gonna help you, and the person does it, and it helped them. Because I was like, how can I know? Well, because those informations are already in me. It's just we're not taught enough to access them. And I think that's the main concept. So yes, spiritual was super important, and coming out of the closet of my spirituality. And never before you would have heard me say I'm a shaman. And there's so much in my family. There's so many passed it along from grandparents until me, because of what people are saying. And I'm from Haiti, so people be like, "Oh shit," right? Right? They're like, "Oh, there comes the voodoo," and they get scared of it without knowing what it is actually is, right? So, but that connections with the unseen world has empowered me more. I walk with more confidence, you know, and with so much less fear, because I know what's happening next. Like, it's hard to say like that, but I know death is not as scary. Ghosts are not as scary. They're just part of life, right?
Yeah. And I love how you kind of talked about like everything in your family has been passed down through blood, because I think so often, I mean, even in the coaching world, what we hear about is like generational trauma passed down. But there's so much more passed down other than just trauma. Like there are beautiful things passed down the line. And I think hearing the story, it's almost like your ancestors are wanting the story to be told. Like we're coming into a time where we want the story to be told. And I think there are so many, when we go back, stories not being told.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just like this unkept secret. Sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's love. Something is being passed down and it's wanting its way out to connect, because I truly do believe we are all connected, but we are trained to not connect on those levels. Every piece of us is meant to be shared,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so much fear attached to all of it that we keep parts of ourselves hidden, which would really be the connecting piece to each person around us. And the idea of being a storyteller, like storytelling has been around forever, but there's like
Forever.
this gap of time where like stories went silent, and
Mm-hmm.
it came to some point where we determined that our story wasn't important enough to be told. But like I look back at history and I'm like, there are so many untold stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like we know about presidents, we know about world leaders or celebrities, but there are so many stories attached to all of those that are just like unknown. Like, and I think the idea of everyone moving forward and their stories being told and their fears being let out, it just gives us that level of connection that I think the world really needs right now. Social media seems like we're very connected, but I think we've become so disconnected because we don't see the human aspect in everyone else's stories around us. And I think the more people who can share their authentic story, we're just opening doors for people to walk in and connect with us. And I think that's so important.
That I love when you're saying that is extremely important. And you know, people want to stop the bad cycle, right? Generational trauma, we're talking about the cycle of doing the same thing. And sometimes I'm sure that some people have felt, and I know you felt it, that it's some pain or something that is not yours. For some reason, it's part of your life, and you're like, but it is not me. It is not part of me. There's a disconnect with that pain or the disconnect with that fear. And then we realize, oh my gosh, when we start searching more about her story. I said, own your story and also know your history, right? Own your story and know your history. And then when you start going back to your history of your grandparents and mothers and fathers and uncles and cousins, you start to realize, oh, there's a reason, there's a cycle that keep going. And then with everything, when we become aware of the cycle, then we have the power to stop it, right? We have the power to stop it. So awareness of it, needing to stop it. There's quite a few cycles in my family, quite a few fear that I realized wasn't so not, I didn't know why I had them because it was not mine. And then I'm able to release them and find a way to say it is not mine. So I'm stopping it. I'm stopping the information, the sharing of information there. So my children will get different, my and their children will receive something different because I was able to stop that cycle.
Yeah. My friend Melanie has a technique that she uses in her coaching called timeline healing.
Mm,
And I spoke to someone who did it with her. And it was like your whole idea of your story starts shifting when you start going back and healing traumas and fears that have made your choices for you on your journey. And I
mm-hmm,
feel like if more people started revisiting their story, they would start to see along their journey up until this point in time, they've been making choices based upon beliefs or fears and things that weren't theirs to carry further. They were meant to stop with the person who gave you the fear.
mm-hmm.
And I love how you kind of put it there of like going back and realizing it wasn't your fear to bring further. And it's so interesting how far so many adults can go into their lives as adults carrying someone else's baggage that wasn't meant to be carried any further and not realizing it because they haven't taken that journey back to see where did this come from and how is this serving my journey.
And it's so important for ourselves and understand. I remember when I started to actually uh, look at my mother as a woman, not as my mother, but as a human being woman. And I realized what happened to her life to make her who she is right now. And then realizing what baggage was transferred to me and what baggage I can let go. And it's the same thing with even all the aspect of our life, realizing, hey, you're my father, you're not only the rapist, but you're also the man. What happened to your story to make you act the way you act? And not in understanding, when I start to understand his story, believe it or not, I was able to, and see the man, I was able to have some type of compassion. Not forgiveness, compassion. Right? I'm just saying, right? There's a difference. Um, and compassion and understanding of the being that he is today, right? So when we start to see that, when I start to see that and understand that type of history when it comes to him, I was able to let go a lot of things. And I think that's what the importance of a history. But I think there was a period of time in a society, people keep telling, let go of the past. Don't think about the past. The past is the past. Don't think about the past. The past is the past. But you need, I'm not saying to sit down and enjoy, like, you know, put your butt on and live in the past. You know what I mean? You know, I'm not talking about that. But I think there's something about revisiting the past. There's so much to learn about the past. The same thing they said, like, know your history so history doesn't repeat itself. It's the same thing for us as individual. Know your history so you don't repeat it. And
Yeah.
just saying, oh, I don't want to think about it, I don't want to see it, I don't want to view it, it's not helping. And I think there was that shift that came to our world that was pushing us too much. Don't think about the past. Leave the past alone. And then we're focusing on the future. But the future, there's so many things that happen. I find for myself when I start to revisit my history as I'm writing the book, from that history of revisiting my past, I was able to transform my present. And as I'm transforming my present, I'm able to create a better future, right? Ignoring my past was not helping me because I couldn't move. I was being dishonest. Like we can say something in our mouth, but our mind, our body, and our spirit, our mind, body, and spirit need to believe it, right? If one doesn't
Yes.
believe it, it's not gonna happen, right? We're not gonna be able to move forward. So I think it's important to own your story and know your history so we can actually move forward.
Yeah. I love that you said that because I I've said it to so many people. I'm like, I can hear it in your voice. I hear what you're saying, but I can hear it in your voice that it is not aligned with your mind and spirit because just because you're saying it to me and I can believe you doesn't mean that it will be part of your journey if you do not align with it and believe in it.
Mm,
And the idea of also connecting back and seeing your mom as a woman and a person when I hit that journey for myself and I was just like, wow, my mom was this age, I'm this age now, and I would have been this old. I don't know if I could have a child right now, like at this
mhm,
age. Like it made me see her in such a bigger light because I was just like, wow, she navigated a life and still was able to show love on my journey. Um, Although, like, life is chaotic and you are stepping into the unknown each and every single
mhm.
day. And she was still doing that, showing up with love for me. So, like, going and seeing her not just as mom, the person who, like, couldn't have flaws. Like, moms can't have flaws in children's heads. Like, if mom messes up, it's because she's angry with you or mad.
Exactly.
When you become an adult, you're like, wow, mom was probably having a tough day trying to figure out life and still be mom for me,
Hmm.
so that I wouldn't have to deal with all the hard stuff in life yet.
That's
But
exactly it. Yeah.
it's so beautiful to be able to be an adult and see that journey. But also, part of my journey was connecting with so many other people around me made me so much more aware of my story because I feel like until you have the ability to see others, you just assume everyone lives the same journey that you've lived. We
Mhm.
all have the same knowledge, we all have the same stories to live off of. But when I started hearing other people's, I was able to view my story from different eyes and be like, wow, that's such a limiting story that I lived in. That's such a limiting belief that I've attached myself to and have been carrying so long. This person doesn't have that. So why am I keep carrying this when I don't need it? And it was a space for me to just kind of allow myself to let go and knowing that it's like it was part of my story, but it doesn't have to be anymore.
Hmm. It is so true. It is so true. And one thing else that I realized is that, and you're gonna hear it a lot in my book, I ask a lot of questions. I'm being curious. I love when you say trying to get to know different people, and also different people from different culture, different people from different way of thinking. My way of thinking. But then I start to be more curious about people who think different than me, and I start to understand what's the reason they think that way, and grasp that some of the thing makes sense. Some of the things I can actually add on my knowledge, right? But it's that curiosity. And then when we become more curious about other people, then also they give us a chance to start asking the right questions about ourselves. And then when we start
Yeah.
asking the right question about ourselves, that's when we start to get the answer. But questioning is so important. I have two children. So my children, I remember one of them has a hard time asking questions in school, was having a hard time asking questions in school. And I was like, why? I said, well, because I don't know, the teacher might think I'm dumb or whatever. All that fear. So again, the fear of not questioning it's instigated in our society. Don't question, just believe. Don't question, just follow, right? But it's in the questioning that really answers are found. The questioning and understanding is happening. It's in the questioning that we start to actually evolve. There's no evolution without question, right? I'm sure the person who created the wheels was like, yo, I need something faster, or I need to do something, right? And they start to question. And then they start to get, oh, let me try this. Other answer, let me question more. Answer. So why don't we want to do it for our own selves? And I know it might be difficult, but it is something we can do for our own self.
I 100% agree. There have definitely been times in my own story where I was like, why didn't I ask for help sooner? Like, why did I sit there and struggle so much when I know I'm surrounded by people who love me, who are not going to judge because I create space around me where I don't judge the people around me. And I was like, I've sat in too many spaces for way too long, slowing myself down by allowing that fear to stop me from just saying, I don't have the answer. Do you?
Yeah,
Like, it's okay to do that. And I know that we're getting close to the end of the
yeah.
live. So I want to ask, when someone has your book in hand and they sit down to read it, what do you want them to have in their mind before they open it and start reading it for the first time?
Um, First, I would like them to be curious. First, be curious about it. And I think I will encourage everybody to take a deep breath. Um, it will be there's some part, or like they're the truth, but it can be part of the world that some of us don't want to see, right? We don't want to hear when it comes to part of the abuse, right? We might not want to see those things. So just be curious and be patient. The book is divided in two. One part is fear, and the other part is called love. So part one, it's going to feel some fear, but hold on enough, because the love part is extraordinary. And I think, um, yeah, that's what I would like them to still be curious and be open. And then if you have any questions or comments, to let me know, right? The launch is August 1st. So on my birthday, I was born out of fear, but I was born out of love. So the book has to come out on my birthday,
I
right?
love it.
So on my birthday, Born Out of Fear is gonna come out, and and you know the interesting about it, and I think I encourage everybody to write a story if you want to. You don't have to share with the world if you don't want to, but write it. Write it for because you are an ancestor. You are an ancestor. So write it for the other people who's gonna come for you. If you don't want to print it for everybody to read, let it go. Give it for the other people, because as I wrote that, this part of me, the past has been healed. This past has been understood. There's an evolution that happened. It feels like I can move to the next step. There's a liberation that came with it, that I felt that I can move now to the next step of my life. And I'm I'm not worried about what people are gonna say, because every words that I put in it, I stand by them. Everything about the book, I stand by them. So I love it or hate it, but I think you're gonna love it. Love it or hate it, but it is just doing that for me was liberating, and it feels like I am okay to move to my next step. I'm okay now to move to part three of my life, right? I have part one, part two. Now I'm able to move to part three. And I'm excited to see what part three is going to be.
Me as well. I absolutely love that. And yeah, I would have loved to have been able to read a book by my grandfather about his life. Like, there are so many small bits and pieces that I get to look back on, whether it's letters he shared with his mother or small things that he wrote while he was a doctor. But to have a physical book to kind of see, that would be beautiful. So I would love for people to start doing that as well, because that's a beautiful thing to pass down generation to generation. And
Live the
yeah,
story so they can know.
yeah.
Hmm.
So August 1st, I will be in line waiting for the book to come out. I'm
Oh, you're gonna
super
receive your
excited to
signed
read it.
copy, my friend. You're gonna receive your signed copy. You are so
Perfect.
special in my life. You're so special in my life for sure. And I cannot wait for you to hear your perspective about it. I think that's going to be the excitement for me. The people that I cherish, the people that I love, because I know they're going to be honest about what I wrote. So I'm excited for you to read it. I'm really excited for you to read it.
I'm I'm very excited, and we can jump on another positive talk and have the conversation if you like, or we could do it one on one. Whichever one comes first, we'll do it
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on here,
Thank you, Mike.
and I'm so excited. I will share the link to your page that you've got here on Instagram for people who are interested in the book. I know that you're posting stuff there to keep people updated.
Yeah.
So I'll tag you in that, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, my friend. Love you so much. Bye. Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much. Bye, love.
Bye.